If your washer is dead, do the following test to try to find out what the problem is. Set the timer on the regular cycle and pull the knob to start the washer. The washer should start filling with water. If the washer don't do that, shut the timer off, set the dial on the spin cycle and pull the knob to start the washer. The washer should start spinning. If it don't spin, if the washer won't do anything, you will need to check the timer push-pull switch, the wall outlet, the cord, and the door switch to see where the problem is. Unplug the washer from the wall outlet and plug in a hair dryer. If the hair dryer works, then you know that the outlet is not the problem. If the hair dryer doesn't work, then you have to check for a blown fuse or a tripped circuit breaker. If your problem is bigger than a blown fuse or a tripped circuit breaker, you will need to get a licensed electrician to take care of the problem. How to check the door switch on a new style washer. Make sure you disconnect the washer from the wall outlet before proceeding. Remove the controls back panel. To remove the controls panel, you will need to remove these two screws. Tap with your hand on the two corners of the control panel to move it forward. Then just take it right out. Move it like this to gain access to the lit switch. Disconnect the lit switch wire harness. Take a reading with your ohms meter between the terminals line and machine. With the door open or closed, the reading should be 0 ohms. If the reading is infinity, the lit switch is no good and you will need to replace it. Take a reading between the terminals motor and machine. With the washing machine door closed, the reading should be 0 ohms. If the reading is infinity, the lit switch is no good and you will need to replace it. How to replace the lit switch on a Maytag new style washer. Make sure the washer is disconnected from the wall outlet. Remove the controls back panel to gain access to the lit switch. The door on the washer has to be open in order to be able to remove and install the new switch. Use the needle nose pliers to remove the lit switch wire harness. You will need to be very careful when lifting the holding tab on the lit switch. If you break the tab, the switch will not stay in place. Grab the switch with your left hand and use a flat screwdriver to lift the holding tab just enough to clear the hole. Push the switch forward and take it out. To install the new lit switch, set it in place, push down and pull it until the holding tab falls in place. Connect the lit switch wire harness. Make sure it's all the way in. Install the controls back panel and you're done replacing the lit switch. How to check the lit switch assembly on an old style Maytag washer. Make sure the washer is disconnected from the wall outlet. Remove the two holding screws on the controls panel. Pick up the controls panel and lay it down on top of the washer. Remove the green wire that is attached to the controls panel. Pick up the controls panel and put it behind the washer. Let it hang by the wires. Let's check the lit switch assembly. Remove the red wire on the left from the switch. Take a reading with your ohms meter between the two terminals on the lit switch. The reading should be, with the door closed, 0 ohms. If the reading is infinity with the door closed, the lit switch is bad and you have to replace the complete assembly. To test the check switch, remove the red wire from the switch. Take a reading from that terminal to the terminal with the black wire on the switch. With the door closed, the reading should be 0 ohms. If the reading is infinity with the door closed, you will have to replace the complete lit switch assembly. How to replace the lit switch on an older style Maytag washer. Make sure the washer is disconnected from the wall outlet. With the controls panel still hanging behind the washer, remove this holding screw. Lift the lit switch assembly and remove it. Leave all the wires attached to the switch assembly. This is the way that your old lit switch may look like, and this is the way the replacement will look, just a little different. This is a lit switch actuator, and it goes between the lit switch and the check switch. Insert the lit switch assembly tabs into the slots in the cabinet and align it. Screw in the holding screw just tight enough that you can move the lit switch assembly forward. Grab the lit switch assembly and move it forward until you hear the switch click on. Hold it in place and tighten the holding screw to secure the switch in place. The tabs should be about in the middle of the slots. Open the door slowly halfway and you will hear the lit switch click. Finish opening the door slowly and you will hear the check switch click. Remove the wires from the old switch one at a time and connect them to the new switch. This way, when you finish, all the wires are connected to the right terminals on the new switch. Pick up the controls panel and set it in place. Screw in the holding screws. Make sure you don't pinch any wires between the control panel and the cabinet. How to check the timer line switch on an older style Maytag washer. Make sure the washer is disconnected from the wall outlet. Set the timer somewhere on the regular cycle and pull the knob to turn the timer line switch on. Remove the controls panel holding screws. Pick up the controls panel, turn it upside down, tape it down to hold it in place. This is how the timer line switch works. When you pull the knob, you turn the line switch on. And when you push the knob, you turn the line switch off. Pull the knob to turn the line switch on. Remove the wire from L1. Take a reading with your ohms meter between L1 and SW. The reading should be 0 ohms. If the reading is infinity, the timer is bad and you will need to replace it. Push the knob to turn the line switch off. Take a reading between terminals L1 and SW. The reading should be infinity. If the reading is 0 ohms, this means that the line switch contacts are welded and you will need to replace the timer. Remove the tape that you used to hold the controls panel in place. Pick it up, turn it around, set it in place, and screw in the holding screws. And that's how you check a timer line switch. How to check the push-pull timer switch. Disconnect the washer from the wall outlet. Remove the controls back panel. Set the timer on the regular wash cycle and pull the knob to turn the timer on. We're going to use the wires marked LS on the lit switch harness and L1 on the core harness to check for continuity on the timer push-pull switch. The lit switch is located under the timer. Use a needle nose pliers to remove the lit switch wire harness. Insert one of the ohms meter test probes into the terminal marked LS on the lit switch wire harness. Disconnect the core wire harness and touch the terminal marked L1 with the other ohms meter test probe. With your multimeter set to check resistance, the reading should be 0 ohms. If the reading is infinity, the push-pull switch is bad and you will need to replace the timer. How to check the cord? Make sure you disconnect the washer from the wall outlet before proceeding. Remove the control's back panel. Disconnect the core wire harness. Make a jumper out of a piece of coat hanger wire. Flatten the ends like this. Insert the jumper wire into the two terminals in the core connecting block like this. Tape the core plug to the cabinet to make it easier. Take a reading with your ohms meter between the two flat terminals on the core plug like this. The reading should be 0 ohms, meaning that electricity could pass through the wires in the cord. If the reading is infinity, the cord is bad and you will need to replace it. How to check the cord on an older style Maytag washer. You really have to make sure that the washer is disconnected from the wall outlet because we're going to work with the cord. Remove the controls panel to gain access to the timer. That's what the cord is connected to. Remove the wires from the terminals 7N and L1 on the timer. Hook up the wires like this to make a one line. Take a reading between the two flat terminals on the plug. The reading should be 0 ohms. If the reading is infinity, the cord is no good and you will need to replace it. If the cord is good, reconnect the wires. If the cord is no good, replace it with a new one. Reinstall the controls panel. Screw in the holding screws. That's all it takes to check and replace the cord if you need to.